everyone from LowKick MMA. My name is Danny Podolsky, and I am joined with Cody Durden. He is set to return to the cage on July 20th when he takes on Bruno Silva. Cody, thank you so much for joining us.
Man, thank you for having me. I'm excited, ready to get in there and punch Bruno Silva in the face.
Yeah, talk to me. We're about, a week and a half out from your fight. I know you're based in Georgia. When do you leave for Vegas?
So I leave for Vegas Monday. I'm on top of my weight cut. Weight's going good, and yeah, man, it's been a great camp. Did 7 weeks at American Top Team Coconut Creek. Came back home last week. Did a week here with my coaches, and we're healthy, injury free, ready to get in there and rock and roll next week.
Talk to me about this fight with Bruno Silva. I know you guys were booked at one point last year. That fight didn't come together, and now you guys are finally booked. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, so I was booked to fight him September 23rd of 2023, and I took a short notice fight versus Hadley. My arm was pretty jacked up after that armbar escape, and funny enough, he got hurt as well, so he couldn't fight. So, I ended up fighting Tiger in December, and then I go to Coconut Creek in March, and he had moved there. So he had moved there in February, and it was pretty awkward at first, but we trained together, and then they offered us to fight, and I'll fight anybody, anybody that gets in my way. I'll fight my dad. It doesn't matter, and I love my dad to death. So it is what it is. Now we're set to fight against each other, and it's going down next weekend.
So were both you and Bruno training at Top Team for this fight?
Yeah, yeah, we train together on the same mat on like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I train right next to the guy. I mean, it doesn't matter. He can see me train, he can watch what I'm gonna do, but is he gonna be able to stop it? We'll see. That's the best thing. We get to find out. And at the same time, I got to see him train. So um it's business, it's nothing personal. We were cordial towards one another, but when we get in that cage, uh, I'll do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, I'm sure you know it's going to be business in the cage and then afterwards kind of, respect on both sides. How does that kind of work for you guys with coaching wise with both you guys coming out of that same gym?
Yeah, so we have the main practice at American Top Team, man, there's like 60 guys or plus on the mat. So but there's a bunch of different coaches. He had his own coaches. I had my own coaches. We weren't sparring in front of each other. We weren't training specifically, towards our plan in front of each other. It just reminds me of high school wrestling. We get to find out who's varsity and we get to find out who's JV.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it because I don't think I've come across, an interview here for me where it's both fighters are coming out of that same gym. But I know for you, American Top Team is one of the biggest gyms in the, especially in the country, and all these great fighters come out of there. Who have been your main training partners for this camp?
So I got this guy named Riley Palmer, Anthony Rivera. I trained with Zoglis, Zumagulov, did a lot of rounds with him. Just tried to get guys that mimic his size and his fighting style, really. But I got to train a lot with the Basharat brothers. They're great partners, and we actually worked a lot of specific details. And yeah, man, I mean, it went well. To go through a whole camp and not be injured, I mean, that never happens. So I'm blessed. I'm thankful and ready to put on a show.
Yeah, and so from your camp, often I'll ask fighters, oh, have you gotten to watch the footage on this fighter? What do you think is the advantage? But you've literally gotten to see Bruno Silva, at least to some degree, in the same gym. From all of that, plus watching, previous fights and whatnot, what do you think gives you the advantage over Bruno?
Can you,
Sorry
Can you
to
hear me?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You said from all of that, what?
sorry, from all that, what do you think gives you the advantage over Bruno Silva?
He hasn't fought in a while, and when I fight, if you watch my fights, man, I bring it. From bell to bell. My cardio is insane. I've gotten stronger. I've gotten way better at submission defense. Um, Bruno doesn't have the attributes of Tiger with the length and the top game pressure. I just I just know I'm going to be able to break him.
And for you, I know in your UFC run, like it started out slow and then you had the win against how it I'm blinking right now, Charles Johnson, and that kind of set off the win streak, and then a little bump in the road against Tagir. What improvements have you been able to make since that loss? And is there a different mindset now coming into the fight, coming off a loss compared to your last three where you're coming off the win?
Yeah, I've definitely know that I've gotten better, just overall as a fighter, not only mentally but physically. The whole month of March, I spent it down there at American Top Team. I thought I was going to fight in May, so I was training March, April, May, and then the whole month of June. So I literally been training nonstop for the last 4 months, and you're going to see something special. Uh, Everybody knows I bring it, and I'm not just a wrestler. I can strike as well. So I'm well versatile, and I've been working a lot of the submission defense, man. I mean, my losses in the UFC have came via submission, and obviously that's what I needed to work, and so that's what I worked on. Just overall becoming a better fighter and just having better fight IQ and don't put myself in bad positions early on in the fight.
Yeah, I know certainly looking at your UFC run, didn't necessarily start probably how you wanted at 1-2-1, but then since then it's been all uphill 4-1. We've seen a whole new level of your game. You were originally booked to fight on International Fight Week against Carlos Hernandez. What happened with that fight getting pushed back? And is it frustrating for you kind of going back to the Apex now as opposed to getting to fight in front of the fans?
Yeah, exactly, man. I wanted to fight at UFC 303, but we ran into a little bump in the road, and I got exonerated. I'm good. I've always acted in good faith, and the UFC knows that. And so after I got exonerated for something that I didn't even do, um, McMaynard called me. He said, "Man, it's all right. When are you looking to fight? I'm sorry. We gave your opponent a different opponent, and do you want to fight in June?" I was like, "Dude, it don't matter. Give me anybody." So they gave me Bruno Silva again, 3 fight win streak, 3 finishes. Um, Carlos, on the other hand, there was nothing to gain from that fight for me really. Um, he didn't look impressive to me. There's nothing that stood out, and Bruno Silva is a more dangerous opponent that has there's more on the line with this fight.
Yeah, I think certainly record wise in the UFC, Bruno Silva has the more he's got more wins to his name and all that in terms of win loss. I think the biggest loss, I think for you can tell me if I'm wrong, has got to be the fact that it was going to be the McGregor card at the time of his book. Of course, it turned into Pereira and Yuri Prochazka, but obviously international
Yeah,
fight was a big card. Um, go obviously this fight's gonna be at the Apex, but going forward, are you hoping to get back in front of those fans for your next one?
absolutely, man. The card that I'm fighting on at the Apex, it's on paper it's not really the best card, and I'll admit that. Uh, I was scheduled to be on a pay-per-view card, and that's the cards that I would like to be on. The biggest opportunities there is, and that's when people watch UFC. The regular people watch the UFC pay-per-view cards. They don't really watch the fight night cards. That's where the most eyes are, and that's where I want to be. And I'm sure we'll get there after this fight.
Yeah, certainly. I think, a win for you will put you back in the right kind of path. I also think too is that doing right by you because what I respect is that I know the fight with Carlos got pushed back, but it's not like you took 3 months off after the whole fight with Carlos got canceled. You're getting right back in there in July. And I think the UFC does tend to respect guys like that. You're someone who's always stepped up to take fights. Obviously, I mean the Charles or the Hadley fight you mentioned was short notice. Makayev was kind of that guy where
Yeah.
he was kind of the guy who no one really knew how good he was, and you're the one who stepped up and took that fight. So certainly you're a guy who's never been one to turn down fights. Looking at your division, since the last time we talked, Pantoja is now the champion. Talk to me about how you feel about the top of the division. Pantoja's the champ. It's really wide open below that. Tatsuro Taira's made a name for himself. Mokaev, who is a former opponent of yours, he's gonna fight Manel Kopp, and that's potentially a title eliminator fight. But how are you looking at the top of the 125-pound division?
Man, I think a win right here, that'll be 5 wins out of my last 6 fights. I think it heads me in the right direction. Maybe we'll get Matthias Nikolai next. I know Tim Elliott just had surgery yesterday, and yeah, maybe I'll get Tatsuro Terra next. Who knows? The division's moving fast, and I've put my name in for a lot of fights. I put my name in to fight Joshua Van twice, and I don't know if the UFC said no or he said no, but it was a no. I tried to fight Andre Lima June, was it June 1st or June 2nd, UFC 302, and uh, didn't get that fight. So obviously they're trying to you know book me with the right opponents, and my path's going to move forward after this.
Let me ask you more just like as an overall kind of general questions like what's the biggest difference in fighting someone like Bruno who has a lot of fights whose name has been in the UFC while compared to someone like when you were booked against Mokaev or Jake Hadley was pretty new to the UFC. What's the biggest difference in training for someone who's more on the prospect status versus a guy who's more developed in the UFC?
You just got to be, usually the guys that are more green, they make more mistakes. They haven't learned, they haven't got the cage time, they haven't been in the environment. Maybe the anxiety starts setting in, or the adrenaline. But for a guy like Bruno Silva, he's going to come in calm, composed, poised, and he's been there. This is his sixth fight, but also at the same time, he hasn't fought in a while, and that makes a difference. Yeah, I haven't fought in 6 months, but man, I've been fight ready. I've been putting my name in the hat, and I've been living the lifestyle of a pro athlete, of one who's striving to be the best he can, and one who's striving to get to the top of the division. I'm not just in this game just to make money. I'm in this game to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I'm not just here to make money. I'm here to make a lot of money. Looking ahead for the rest of 2024, obviously it's got to start with a win against Bruno Silva. But after that, and I don't want you to look past, the fight with Silva, but what are your goals for the end of 2024 when it's all said and done?
Man, get another fight booked, and get back to work. Uh, a win over Bruno Silva is just a win. You know, I'm looking to turn that number 14th ranking into number 9, then number 5. I'm trying to climb to the top.
Yeah, and I think certainly the win over Bruno Silva puts you in a position where you're not necessarily fighting down and you're going to be looking upwards. As the fighter, you're the one who's ranked 14th. Bruno Silva is currently unranked. He was ranked at one point, and then he's got kind of taken out due to either both a combination of inactivity and just he was like right at the bottom. Other guys joined the rankings. Is Are the rankings something that you pay attention to at all in terms of like, okay, I got to defend my number 14 spot, or is it one of those things where it's like the UFC put this number next to my name, but I don't really give a shit about it?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the ranking does matter. But I'm always looking ahead of my ranking. I'm not worried about defending my ranking to somebody behind me. Everybody knows I'll fight, no problem. Um, I actually enjoy fighting, and it's how I get paid. It's how I have a better future for the family. And so fighting somewhere behind me, in front of me, it doesn't matter. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. So that's how I truly feel.
You know, that's obviously the old Cowboy Cerrone saying, but a lot of
Yeah.
fighters truly do embody, and you're absolutely one of those guys. The UFC has obviously in the past, we're in a post-COVID world. In the past 2 years, it's started to go to places outside of just the pay-per-view card. It's kind of typically like in a month we'll do a pay-per-view, one event that's kind of non-pay-per-view at a venue and that couple Apex cards a month. You're obviously from Atlanta, Georgia. That's one of the places that, in terms of big cities, that the UFC hasn't gone to since COVID happened. Are you hoping to get a fight booked in Atlanta? Are you hoping to bring the UFC back to Atlanta soon?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know for sure that there'll be thousands of fans there screaming my name, just like when I went to Nashville. I mean, the whole arena was screaming my name, and we feed off that. I feel like I'm a real life gladiator,
Mhm.
and sometimes I feel like we should be fighting till the death in there, even though we shouldn't. But sometimes I feel like I want to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. And I know you trained down in Florida at ATT for most of this camp, but generally speaking, talk to me about the scene in Atlanta right now for MMA.
So I'm at American Top Team Lima in Gwinnett County, Georgia. It's about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, and literally we have there's a promotion called NFC, National Fighting Championship, and I think we have like 7 of the belts from the promotion, and so we definitely have the top team in Georgia on paper, and there's no one else in Georgia that's winning belts like us, that has UFC fighters, that has UFC fighter coaches, and our gym's big. So um, yeah, if you come to Atlanta, you got to stop by American Top Team Lima.
Well, certainly if I'm in Atlanta, I'll try and make it down there. Your head coach, Diego Lima, obviously you've been with him for a while, but talk to me about your relationship with him and just how much he's helped you improve as a fighter.
Yeah, yeah, he's helped me a lot. He had some things going on with the gym, like training people and getting the business running, the paperwork side. So I didn't get to train with him a lot this camp, but I did get to train with a coach down in Coconut Creek named Steve Bruno. He's a great coach. Did a lot of game planning with him, and then my head coach Chad Schaefer. He was Forrest Griffin's roommate. He coached Forrest Griffin on the Ultimate Fighter, and then he also coached Brian Bowles in the WEC. And we made a gym out of his garage, and that's where we mostly break everything down. It's called the War Gym, and we get to work there. A lot of film study, a lot of work in the specifics. So I feel like it takes a team to win a championship, and I definitely have a championship team around me.
Yeah, well, certainly now between your team up in Atlanta and then also having the guys down at ATT in Florida, you've got a lot of people in your corner, a lot of people to work with. Cody, my final question for you. July 20th, Cody Durden, Bruno Silva. Cody, give me your official prediction.
I think I'm gonna finish second round submission, rear naked choke.
There you go. Cody Durden, round two submission, that calling a shot.
Let's
Cody,
go.
thank you so much for taking the time. If there are any socials, platforms, whatever you want to shout out, the platform's yours.
Man, shout out to everybody who's sticking with me, who's rocking with me, who's betting money on me. We're gonna win a lot of money next Saturday. Bet the house.
Hell yeah. Cody Durden is back in the octagon. He takes on Bruno Silva 2 weeks from now on July 20th. You will not want to miss this fight. Cody Durden, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.